Now that we went through our diagnostic procedures, we have verified that this left front wheel bearing is the cause of the noise that the customer was hearing. So we're going to go through the process of R&Ring this wheel bearing, remove and replace it with a new wheel bearing assembly. First thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to remove this caliper assembly so that we can get access to the wheel bearing behind it. So we're going to go ahead and remove that caliper assembly. We've got two 19mm bolts securing this caliper assembly to the hub bearing on this Nissan. So we're going to go ahead and remove those. Now, once you get this last bolt out, you're going to want to make sure you hold on to your caliper here. Last thing you want it to do is fall off and have it dangle by the brake hose and possibly damage it. You're going to want to use some type of device to support this and hang it from somewhere so that it's not hanging by the brake hose. Find someplace suitable that'll allow you to not put any of the weight on the actual brake hose itself. So I have the caliper not hanging by the brake hose, supported by the weight of the bungee cord, to make sure that we don't damage the brake hose or anything while we're doing our service. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove our brake rotor. I'm going to straighten this wheel out a little bit. Now you got a good shot of what the actual hub bearing assembly looks like. So some of you may notice, wow, that wheel bearing doesn't look very old, and you're absolutely correct, it isn't. This wheel bearing was replaced just about 6 months ago, but the customer is actually having a concern with it again. It looks like it's been a manufacturing defect internal inside this bearing that is causing the concern, as everything was torqued down correctly when it was installed. But we're going to go ahead and replace this for the customer anyways. So the next thing we need to do at this point is remove our cotter pin and our axle nut that's keeping the axle and the preload attached to this front hub bearing assembly. So we're going to go through that right now. So now we're going to go ahead and remove our axle nut. All right, next thing we're going to do is remove the 4 bolts that are attaching the hub bearing assembly to the knuckle. Before that, let's go ahead and disconnect our wiring that leads to our ABS sensor. All right, we're going to move it from the grommets here, noting the way that it was ran so we can run the wire the exact same way it was before. All right. Wheel speed sensor is disconnected now. That just leaves us the 4 bolts that are attaching it to the knuckles at this point, to the knuckle. We're going to turn our wheel a little bit and see if we can get access to these ones back here first. Let's go ahead and remove the 4 bolts holding the hub bearing to the knuckle assembly. All right. So we got our last bolt out, securing the hub to the knuckle. We have our axle nut off as well. Calipers out of the way, rotors out of the way. That means we're ready to remove this hub bearing from the knuckle. Okay, so usually these hub bearings might be pretty well seized inside the knuckle itself, but this one not being as old as some, we can probably tap this one out with a hammer and remove it. All right, feed our sensor through our backing plate here. And the hub bearing has been removed. Now that our bearing is out, I do want to go ahead and clean the surface, the mating surface where the new hub bearing will go. You also want to clean out inside of here, making sure there's no rust or anything like that. Really, I want everything to go together real nice and smooth and have no offset, no rust causing any issues as in the way of the bearing not sitting flush in there. So we're going to go ahead and clean this off. So now I've got a real nice clean surface where that new bearing and that knuckle will just fit together real nice. No, nothing causing it to be sitting funny or anything like that. So we've got a real nice clean surface here. At this point, I also like to take a little bit of anti-seize. Take a little anti-seize on the threads a little bit here, on your splines. And I also do just a little bit of a light coating on the surface as well. Real light. You don't want to overdo the anti-seize. I just do it in case you ever need to take it apart again for any reason, that it will come off relatively easy, as you just saw, because again, not all the times will these bearings come out so easily with just a hammer. Had quite a few where you've had to use some heat to get them out, or a bearing puller. These are common with a bearing that's been inside a knuckle or attached to a knuckle for quite some time. So it's just a good habit to clean the surfaces and put a little anti-seize on everything. Makes everything go better or go back together nice and smooth. And again, real light. I don't want a lot here. I don't want to change the torque value of my axle nut or anything like that. This is just a little light surface coating just to protect everything. So we're getting ready to remove our brand new BCA bearing that was graciously provided to us by NTN. So we got a brand new wheel bearing in here. And the one nice thing about their bearings that I have yet to see a whole lot of is they actually have an axle nut specification booklet included with their bearing. Most of the time you really need to look this information up in the service manual, but this one is included. And it's very in-depth for just about all of the vehicles you can think of, and all the specifications are included on that for that axle nut that we had removed earlier. It's very, very important to make sure that you torque the specifications. And again, now NTN has allowed me to not have to run and get the service information as it's provided in the actual booklet that they provided. So we'll take a look and see what the specification for this vehicle is. And we're going to go ahead and on over to Nissan. And we are working on a Pathfinder. And it's listed right there, 2005 to 2012. And it's listed at 101 foot-pounds, just like the service information said. And that's what we'll torque this to, and we're getting ready to reassemble everything. Always a good idea to inspect everything before you put it in and make sure it's the right one. Make sure that the connector is the same as what you had removed. And everything looks really good here. Perfect match we're going to go ahead and start reassembling this. And of course, installation is going to be the opposite of removal. Again, the service information has us torque the 4 bolts securing the hub to the knuckle to 44 foot-pounds. I've got it set, and we're going to go ahead and torque all these. All right. You'll notice I'm installing this axle nut by hand. Make sure you always give it a good start by hand and don't use an impact gun to start these. And again, it's very crucial to make sure that you're torquing this to the correct specifications. And on this vehicle, we're at 101 foot-pounds. So that. Axle's torqued. The bolts securing our hub to our knuckle are torqued to 44 and they're ready to go as well. The last thing we need to do is install a new cotter pin, reinstall our tire, torque to specifications, and we're ready to roll. All right. As with all our courses here on Tomorrow's Tech University, you will be assessed on your understanding of the topics presented today. You will need to achieve 75% or higher on the post-test to successfully complete this course and receive your certificate. This is Joe Keane with Tomorrow's Tech University, and thanks for learning with us.